The sun rose slowly over the hills of Luweero, casting golden hues across the dusty ground of the village. Roosters crowed in defiant harmony as women carried water from the stream, and smoke from charcoal stoves curled into the morning air. Among the thatched roofs and mango trees stood a small mud house, and inside, a boy named Kato sat cross-legged, tapping rhythmically on an old goatskin drum. He was 16, lean and wiry, with keen brown eyes that held both sorrow and spark. Orphaned at the age of 7, Kato had grown up under the care of Mama Nambi, a kind widow who sold cassava at the market and treated Kato like the son she never had. Music was Kato's salvation. Whenever the weight of loneliness pressed against his chest, he turned to his drum. His rhythms told stories, of sorrow, joy, defiance, and dreams. The villagers often gathered to watch him play beneath the mango tree outside the community center. They marveled at the speed of his hands, the precision of his rhythms, and the way his music seemed to call down the spirits of the ancestors. Yet beyond the village limits, few knew his name. Fame and fortune were as distant as the city skyline he sometimes glimpsed in the far north on clear days. But change was brewing. That morning, the village chairman arrived at Mama Nambi's home, holding a faded flyer. "Kato," he said, "there's a national drumming competition in Kampala. First prize is a scholarship, and a performance on live television." Kato's heart pounded. The thought of performing beyond Luweero, of representing his village, stirred something inside him. With a nod from Mama Nambi and contributions from neighbors who believed in his talent, Kato boarded a bus 2 days later. Drum in hand, hope in heart, and destiny humming in every beat he played. Kampala was a world apart from Luweero. The buildings stretched tall into the sky, cars honked in chaos, and bright lights blinked long into the night. Kato pressed his forehead to the bus window as they approached the city, his breath fogging the glass. He had never seen anything like it. His clothes, clean but plain, seemed out of place amid the polished shoes and smartphones. Yet in his arms, his drum rested like a shield, his identity, his strength. The venue for the competition was the Uganda National Cultural Theatre, a vast building with glass doors and a polished stage. Inside, contestants warmed up with drums of all sizes: bass drums, long cylindrical ngomas, small talking drums. The air was thick with nerves and excitement. Kato stood quietly in a corner, his drum resting on a kitenge cloth, eyes scanning the competition. Some wore uniforms from elite schools, others had sponsors. Kato had none. But he had his rhythm. When his turn came, Kato stepped barefoot onto the stage. The lights blinded him for a second, and the crowd loomed like a distant mountain. But then he began. His fingers danced, his palms struck, and his soul poured into the goatskin surface. The rhythm rose like thunder, then dipped into delicate whispers. He closed his eyes and lost himself. When he finished, the hall was silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. Kato had done what no one expected. He had shaken the city with a village boy's beat. Among the crowd that day sat a girl in a silk blue dress, her braids swept back with a golden pin. Her name was Alisa, daughter of the Honorable Minister of Transport. She was 17, bright-eyed, and weary of her world of guarded gates and political pretense. She hadn't wanted to attend the competition, but something about the poster had intrigued her. When Kato took the stage, she leaned forward instinctively, the pulse of his drumming tugging at her heart. Alisa's world was curated: music lessons, debate club, and charity galas. But Kato's performance stirred something raw in her. It wasn't just the rhythm, it was the story behind it, the unspoken emotion, the hunger, the fight. When he bowed awkwardly and walked off stage, she found herself standing, clapping harder than anyone else. She didn't know his name yet, but she knew she would find him. After the ceremony, she slipped past her security detail and wandered backstage. Among the crowd of drummers and organizers, she spotted him, seated with his drum in his lap, drinking from a plastic bottle of water. She hesitated, then stepped forward. "You were amazing," she said. Kato looked up, startled, then smiled shyly. "Thank you," he replied, his voice barely audible. That was the beginning, a moment of curiosity, a meeting of two worlds, and the first spark of something neither could name yet. Alisa introduced herself properly the next day when the competition winners were announced. Kato had claimed first prize, and his name was now on the lips of everyone in the theater. He wore a borrowed white shirt and slacks, standing uncertainly beside the towering trophy. Alisa found him again after the awards, this time with a small gift, a notebook with a leather cover. "For your rhythms," she said, her smile lighting up her almond-shaped face. Kato was nervous around her. She spoke with confidence, her English crisp and polished, nothing like the mix of Luganda and broken Queen's English he used in the village. But Alisa didn't seem to care. She asked questions, laughed at his quiet jokes, and insisted they share a soda under the shade of a neem tree outside the theater. He noticed the way she listened, truly listened, when he spoke about Mama Nambi, the mango tree, and the village drumming nights. Their conversation stretched, even as her bodyguard circled nearby with growing unease. "I've never met someone like you," Alisa said, watching Kato sketch rhythm patterns in the notebook. "Your heart is in your hands." Kato looked at her, confused and flattered. He didn't know what this was, friendship, admiration, or something else. But he knew one thing: he wanted it to last. Within days, Kato was the talk of Kampala. A video of his performance went viral online, and local news stations scrambled for interviews. He was invited to perform at cultural festivals, school assemblies, and even a breakfast show on TV. A sponsor offered him a scholarship at a prestigious performing arts school in the city. Kato was overwhelmed, but Mama Nambi's steady voice on the phone reminded him, "Stay humble, my son. Rhythm is from the soul, not the spotlight." Alisa watched his rise from close by. She attended many of his performances, sometimes incognito under a wide hat and dark glasses. Their friendship deepened with each shared snack, every laugh at the noisy matatus, and quiet talks about dreams. Kato was learning to navigate the fame, but he never forgot the girl who clapped first for him. But whispers began. "Why is a minister's daughter hanging around a village boy?" her classmates asked. "Is she slumming for attention?" Even her mother, elegant and distant, raised an eyebrow. "He's talented, yes. But you come from different worlds, Alisa." Alisa shrugged it off, until it started to sting. Kato moved into a small hostel near his new school, sharing a cramped room with 3 other students. Despite the chaos, he practiced every evening, his drum a loyal companion. Fame had brought him opportunity but also loneliness. He missed Mama Nambi. He missed quiet. He missed simplicity. And he missed Alisa. Their schedules clashed more now. Alisa had exams, charity work, and diplomatic dinners. Kato had rehearsals, interviews, and performance tours. So they began writing letters. Every Friday, Alisa's handwriting arrived, elegant curls on lined paper. Kato wrote back in careful script, each word weighed with meaning. He slipped poetry into his rhythms. She sent pressed flowers between pages. Their letters were honest, funnier, deeper than their conversations. Alisa wrote about her father's silences, her wish to escape his legacy. Kato wrote about the ache of belonging to 2 places and none at once. Through ink, they grew closer than they ever dared in person. When Kato was invited to perform at the President's Gala, Alisa's father took notice. "This is the boy you've been following around?" he asked, peering at the flyer. "Well, he must be something if he's opening for the Minister of Culture." He handed her a ticket. "You'll attend as my escort." Properly. The gala was held at a luxury hotel in Kampala, all marble floors and glittering chandeliers. Kato wore a tailored black outfit with traditional embroidery, his drum newly reskinned. As he walked onto the stage, he saw Alisa in the crowd, regal in a burgundy gown beside her father. He played with heart and fire, the sound echoing against glass and gold. Afterward they met in the corridor. "You were incredible," Alisa whispered. But before he could reply, her father appeared. He looked Kato up and down and said, "You've got talent, boy. But talent is not enough to build a life beside my daughter." The words cut deep. Kato bowed slightly and left without another word. After the gala, something shifted. Alisa's texts became fewer. Kato, hurt by her father's words, didn't push. Rumors spread in school and press about their romance. One tabloid even called him the drumming peasant chasing a political heiress. Kato laughed it off in public, but in private he felt the sting. Alisa's world closed in around her. Her father tightened her schedule, cutting off unsupervised outings. "Focus on your future," he warned. "Don't let sentiment derail you." She missed Kato, his laugh, his honesty, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. But the walls around her life had grown higher. Kato buried himself in music. He began writing more complex rhythms, creating new fusions of traditional Ugandan beats with modern instrumentation. His fame grew but his heart dimmed. On one lonely evening, he placed his drum aside and whispered, "What's the point of the beat if I've lost the reason I played?" During school holidays, Kato returned to Luweero. The village welcomed him like a king with dancing, ululations, and food. But Kato wasn't celebrating. He sat beneath the mango tree and listened to the wind. Mama Nambi knew. "Love is like rhythm, Kato," she said, sitting beside him. "You can't force it. But you can't ignore it either. He started a drumming workshop for local children. They gathered every afternoon eager and barefoot, their laughter filling the air. Teaching gave him purpose again. He told them about tone, timing, and truth in rhythm. And in teaching he began to heal. One afternoon a car arrived at the village square. Out stepped Alisa, dust on her heels, notebook in hand, tears in her eyes. "I missed you," she said simply. Kato didn't speak. He just opened his arms and she stepped into them. That night, Kato and Alisa walked along the stream, their fingers intertwined. Fireflies danced above the reeds and frogs croaked like distant drums. "I should have fought harder," Alisa said. "I let fear win." Kato shook his head. "We both did. But we're here now." They talked until the stars came out, about school, politics, fame, and family. Alisa confessed how her father had plans for her to study abroad. Kato admitted he'd considered quitting music altogether. "We don't have to figure everything out tonight," he said, "but I want to keep trying." They sat on the bridge, toes dangling over the water, and laughed about the time Kato thought a microphone was a horn. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for that moment it was enough. Back in Kampala, the headlines had shifted. Kato's return to Luweero had been noticed by reporters, and his absence from a major cultural showcase was criticized. "Is fame too heavy for the village star?" one headline read. Sponsors began to call. His manager pressured him. "You can't afford distractions now, especially not emotional ones." Alisa too faced resistance. Her father found out about the Luweero visit and exploded with fury. "That boy cannot give you the life you deserve," he thundered. "You're throwing away your future for some drummer?" Alisa, trembling, refused to apologize. "He's not some drummer. He's more than you'll ever understand." Their love, once a quiet bond, was now under siege. They could only meet in brief, hurried moments, on the steps of cultural halls, in cafe corners, and during stolen evenings at Kato's hostel rooftop. But every kiss was shadowed by the knowledge that time, status, and pressure were closing in. Kato poured everything into his next showcase performance, an experimental fusion piece combining Akoli rhythms, modern jazz, and spoken-word poetry. The show sold out. Cameras flashed. Celebrities applauded. But when he walked backstage he felt hollow. Alisa wasn't there. Her father had confiscated her phone and moved her to Jinja for a month-long leadership camp. Kato wrote letters she never received. The distance fractured his focus. One night, during rehearsal, he lashed out at a fellow drummer for a missed beat. "You're acting like you're the only one with pain," his bandmate snapped. Later, alone in the hostel, Kato held his drum in silence. He realized that success without joy was just noise. And love without presence was an echo fading. Weeks later, Alisa found her way back to Kampala. She confronted her father publicly at a youth policy conference, where she was scheduled to speak. Instead of the prepared script, she addressed the crowd. "It's easy to talk about empowerment from a podium. But true freedom means choosing your own path, even if it leads to a village drummer." The room fell silent. Her father's face went pale. The media erupted. Kato saw the clip that evening on television. He sat frozen, overwhelmed. When Alisa arrived at his hostel rooftop later that night, he simply said, "You did that for me?" She shook her head. "I did it for us." They stood side by side, the city lights twinkling below. The fear was still there. But so was the fire. Kato was invited to perform at the National Museum's Independence Day exhibit. Instead of a flashy showcase, he proposed something bold. A performance back in Luweero, streamed live across the nation. "Let the country see where the beat began," he told the organizers. Alisa convinced her father to attend, begrudgingly. The whole village turned out. Old women ululated, barefoot boys beat drums, and Mama Nambi wept with pride. Kato stepped onto a simple bamboo stage and performed a piece titled Roots and Rise. Alisa watched from the front row, eyes full of tears. Her father, stiff at first, slowly began clapping by the end. It was a start. And for Kato, it was the performance of his life, not because of the cameras but because he was whole again. After the Luweero concert, Kato and Alisa retreated under the mango tree. "We can't keep running between two worlds," Alisa said. "We need to build our own." Together they crafted a dream, a rural art school for underprivileged kids. "We'll call it Heartbeat Academy," Kato said. "Where rhythm meets reason." Alisa laughed. "And love writes the curriculum." They pitched the idea to sponsors, NGOs, and even skeptical government officials. Alisa's speech at the National Education Forum moved hearts. Talent shouldn't depend on where you're born, she declared. I found my path not in parliament halls, but in the echo of a drum beneath a mango tree. The funding came. Not much, but enough. The first bricks of Heartbeat Academy were laid 6 months later. Alisa moved to Luweero full-time, stunning society pages with her relocation. Her father remained cold, but her mother visited quietly and donated supplies. For the children, she said with a faint smile. Kato led construction crews during the day and taught rhythm classes at night. Alisa handled logistics, curriculum, and media. Their love deepened, not in grand gestures but in small daily acts. Washing dishes, painting signs, falling asleep on lesson plans. Villagers joined in. The mango tree now shaded kids from Gulu, Masaka, and even Kampala. This school, Kato said during the opening ceremony, is not mine alone. It's for every child who ever tapped a beat with bare hands and dared to dream. But pressure mounted again. An international arts foundation offered Kato a solo tour across Europe, 8 months, all expenses paid with global exposure. This is your time, his manager insisted. Don't waste it on dusty blackboards and rural concerts. Kato was torn. He loved teaching, but the tour could amplify their vision, bring more funding. Alisa encouraged him. Go. Share the music. We'll hold the rhythm here. Still, a familiar fear crept in. What if we lose each other again? Kato asked the night before his flight. Alisa pressed his hand to her heart. We won't. This beat is in both of us now. In Berlin, Paris, and Oslo, Kato stunned audiences. His music carried the pulse of Uganda, wild, haunting, joyful. Interviews poured in. So did funding pledges. Every city he ended with the same words, I come from a mango tree, not a mansion. But music makes us equal. Back in Uganda, Alisa ran the school with fierce grace. She sent him voice notes every night, often recording children's songs and laughter. The time difference was tough, but love adjusted its tempo. Kato felt homesick but also proud. In every drumbeat he felt Alisa's support, Mama Nambi's prayers, and the hands of every child learning to play. 8 months later, Kato's return was met with song, dance, and tears. The school now had 150 students and a permanent building. Alisa met him at the gate, eyes shining. Welcome home, superstar, she said, wrapping her arms around him. He laughed. I brought you something. He handed her a small drum painted with the flags of every country he'd visited. This beat belongs to you. Together they hosted a village concert. Children performed, parents wept, and even Alisa's father sat quietly, clapping by the end. When Kato announced a new expansion for girls' scholarships, the crowd erupted in cheers. Their dream was growing, and so was their love. Years later, under that same mango tree, Kato and Alisa stood before the first graduating class of Heartbeat Academy. The sun shimmered through the leaves as students performed a final drumline piece, tight, powerful, joyful. Mama Nambi, now gray-haired but spry, sat proudly in the front row. Alisa's mother held her grandchild, yes, their baby, on her lap, bouncing him gently to the rhythm. Kato turned to Alisa. We made something bigger than fame, he whispered. We made a family. A future. She nodded, eyes brimming with joy. And the rhythm goes on. As the drums roared into the sky, Kato raised his hands, not for applause but in gratitude. He had once been just a boy with a beat. Now he was a man with a legacy. And by his side stood the girl who believed, even when the world didn't.